My paranoid coworker banned me from backing up our factory's critical computers. When one crashed and threatened millions in revenue, he tried to blame me until I produced his own email. I was working as an IT manager at a manufacturing company. Like many factories, we had a number of production machines with embedded computer systems. Invariably, these PCs are purchased and configured when the machine is first commissioned, and then they are just left alone. In some cases, these computers can sit in a dusty, hot factory environment for as long as 20 years. Because of lessons from my past, I make it my business to understand these computers inside and out. Regular backups are critical because a failure of the computer means the entire machine stops. But at this company, these systems fell under the responsibility of the site's facilities manager. The facilities manager, whom I nicknamed Too Expensive, was incredibly paranoid. He guarded all his responsibilities jealously and never communicated, terrified someone would take his job. He also had a pathological fixation on not spending company money. We clashed constantly. I wanted to document, understand, and back up the production computers. Every single attempt I made was shut down. I asked him for the hardware specifications and backups, but he just told me, "That is my job. Get lost." Finally, he sent me a terse email ordering me to leave it alone. He claimed he had all the documentation, contacts, and backups, and warned me never to touch a production computer. A few months later, it was electrical inspection day. I had instructed the electrician not to disconnect any computer equipment unless it was powered off first. But then they reached the critical production PC. It was an ancient Pentium running Windows NT4, controlling a rare machine we bought from a defunct company. Too Expensive decided he was too impatient to wait. His thoroughly documented shutdown procedure was simple. He just yanked the power cords right out of the wall. Once the test was passed, he plugged it back in, turned it on, and ran off to his next project without waiting for the system to finish booting up. 10 minutes later, the machine operator started grumbling. I took a quick look and saw that the control software had started, but the screen was completely garbled and none of the measurements were showing. Too Expensive was called over. He took one look, went pale as a sheet, and immediately ran away. Another 10 minutes passed, and the operator asked me for help. I tried calling Too Expensive's mobile, but it was turned off. With millions of dollars of raw product about to expire and be scrapped, and the nearest alternate machine located all the way in Singapore, we were in deep trouble. I called the vice president of operations, our factory boss, and told him to get down here immediately. We still couldn't reach Too Expensive. His phone wouldn't even ring, so we had no access to his supposed backups or emergency contacts. Thankfully, I had used this specific control software before. I knew a guy who did implementations, and after 4 frantic phone calls, I tracked down the original engineer who had set up this specific machine. He had retired 10 years earlier, but our boss persuaded him to come out of retirement. A few hours later, the retired engineer took one look at the machine and confirmed our worst fear. The database was completely destroyed. We had to restore it. We assumed there was no backup because Too Expensive was still missing. The retired engineer told me that when he originally set up the machine, he had stored a baseline backup database on the hard drive. However, we had to figure out 20 years of undocumented updates. Through sheer determination, I managed to compare the corrupted file with the baseline and patched it enough to load in the config editor. It took us 4 grueling days of working together, but we successfully brought the machine back online. Right after we started working, Too Expensive suddenly showed up again. He completely ignored any questions about his backups, demanded regular status updates, and tried to claim credit for the solution to our boss.
Once the machine was running, the boss called me in. He thanked me for saving the factory, but then he told me that Too Expensive was blaming me, claiming I caused the crash and failed to take backups. He said, "I don't believe him, but it's your word against his. If I had evidence, I'd fire him." Smiling, I opened the email Too Expensive had sent me, explicitly ordering me never to touch those computers. Half an hour later, I was told to lock his account. Have you ever had a coworker's own email completely backfire on them?